What's up everybody, Ramey here, and today we're talking about rack height. How high should your power rack be? How tall should you get it, assuming that you have a choice? Because obviously if your ceiling is a certain height, you can't really choose, right? That's kind of your limit. But some of us, like me, I've got a 10-foot garage, so I can kind of choose how high I should get it. So I see this question a lot. People ask, should I get it, 72 or 80 or 90 or 100 or 110? How high should I get my rack? And today I'm going to talk about my thoughts on that issue. So I'm standing in my power rack right now. I'm actually standing on my bench because I am not this tall whatsoever. Here's me standing on the floor. Bench. All right, so right now I am in, this is a 100-inch rack, Titan Series 100-inch rack. So why did I choose a 100-inch? For those of you that have been paying attention to my posts on, the Reddit or Discord, my name is Jiu-Jitsu PhD, for those of you that don't know. You'll see that I actually started with an 80-inch Titan X3, upgraded that to a 90-inch, and now I've upgraded to 100. So why would I possibly do that? Why do people want a taller rack? So what I actually have here is I have an example of what an 80, 90, and 100-inch rack look like. So let's take a look in the back here. We can kind of see it. This bar right here is 80-inch. This bar up here is 90, and obviously the top is 100. What I've also done is right here, this bar that I'm holding on to right now on each side of here is set at the 80-inch height mark. This pull-up bar is set at about the 91-inch mark, and obviously the top of this is 100. So why do we do this? So this is what they look like comparatively to one another, the rack heights. But what's the purpose? So the first and most obvious thing is pull-ups. For those of you that do pull-ups, if I'm hanging down here and I want to do pull-up, this is the height of an 80-inch rack. Now remember, this is actually the top of an 80-inch rack. This is the top. That means that if I was going to put a pull-up bar on this, the bar itself would be several inches lower than the top of the rack. As you can see with my pull-up bar here, here's the top. The bar itself is a couple inches lower. On an 80-inch rack, look how bent my arm is for doing pull-ups. My head, I'm 5'11", I can almost stand with my tippy toes and hit the top of the rack. That's what it's like standing in an 80-inch rack. So for pull-ups, it's nicer to have a higher rack. You don't need to bend your legs when you're actually doing the pull-up. So that's one big advantage. And obviously the other one, if you're really tall, if you're like 6'5", you are going to smack your head into it. So you might feel a little cramped in this short of a rack. Next reason is doing work inside of the rack. So if I wanted to do overhead press or something like that inside an 80-inch rack, look, I'd be hitting it. In fact, in the 90-inch rack, I can just do it, because this is 91 inches right here. I can just do it, but I might have some problems with the uprights hitting. So even in a 90-inch rack, overhead press, in a 100-inch rack, nah, nothing's getting through here. There's no way I can touch the top of this. In fact, you can even see my pull-up bar. I've lowered it a few inches just so I can reach it. So doing work inside of the rack. So we've got pull-ups, feeling cramped, the height of your ceiling, and being able to do work inside of a taller rack. But there are more reasons to get a tall rack. Next thing that I like for a tall rack, let me just take this barbell down and show you. This is a standard length barbell. In a larger rack, I can slide this in and out really easily. Whereas with my 80-inch rack, I couldn't put my barbell in and out of the rack. It was kind of a big pain not to be able to do it. With this one, I can slide it right out to the side. And as I'm doing right now, let's talk about another reason. The other reason, which is probably the most beautiful reason, is storage. I can store stuff up here. I've got a barbell up here that's completely out of the way. I can put more barbells up here using like anchors or something like that. But I can store stuff on my rack. I can just put J-cups up here. I can put things that are completely out of the way from what I'm doing, which is a huge advantage of a taller rack. And people do ask, well, aren't pull-ups hard on a taller rack? And I've already mentioned this, but no, because I can lower my pull-up bar to wherever I want to. And then the final case really for a tall rack is that the closer your rack is to the ceiling, the safer it is. In that, my rack isn't tipping because I have so many hundreds of pounds on this thing and a lat pull down, it's not going anywhere. But if my rack is tall enough and it were to tip, it would actually hit the ceiling, which would prevent it from tipping over. Which means if your ceiling is 85 inches high and you have an 80-inch rack, your rack can't actually tip because it'll hit the ceiling before it's going to. So those are all the reasons why you consider height when you're actually getting a squat rack. And to go on that, you mostly get a rack as high as you can. So if you have a 10-inch garage, you don't get an 80-inch rack. Unless you're trying to save money, they are a little cheaper, but to be honest with you, when you consider the years you're gonna have the rack and the money, the $50 to $100 saved, it's probably, or even $200 saved, it's probably not worth it in the long run because you're gonna wanna use that for storage. You're gonna feel cramped. You're gonna wanna do exercises that will hit the top of it. Just get the higher rack. I really see no disadvantage to a higher rack. The only disadvantages to a higher rack is a little harder to put together when you first get it, but that's a one-time thing. But yes, it was a little harder to put together the 100-inch than the 80, absolutely. Other disadvantages, if you're really short, you might need like a bench to get to the top of the rack. So that could be a disadvantage as well. But really, I don't see those as disadvantages in the long run. I really think you go for a taller rack if you can. And again, just to kind of reiterate, pull-ups, doing things in the rack, storage, prevent it from tipping over. A higher rack, taller rack is overall just has lots of advantages and is better. So for those of you with different size racks, let me know if you've upgraded or anything like that, or how you feel in the smaller rack. I mean, I had an 80-inch, and to be honest with you, it was more than fine. I would have been fine with it forever, but I just kept thinking to myself, I have a 10-foot garage, so why do I have a rack that's, so much shorter than the top of it? So that's one of the reasons I upgraded. But yeah, those are my thoughts, everybody. Let me know what you think. Later.